Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Cold calling. Bitter cold is hitting most of the province today, with temperatures down to in the minus 12 range in Vancouver and minus 40s for northern and central BC. And then there's the wind. We'll take you to Prince George, Fort Fraser, and the lower mainland. And we'll hear from a paramedic on what to watch out for when it is this cold. And hanging up. Are you planning to put the phone away more often this year? That's our second half hour. I'm Michelle Eliot. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, live streaming on the CBC News app on our website, cbc.ca/BC, and on YouTube at CBC Vancouver. Yes, those Arctic outflow warnings are in place for across most of coastal BC, and extreme cold warnings remain in place for most of the central and northern parts of the province. We're going to check in on different parts of BC this half hour, and we're taking your calls on the arrival of cold weather. What is it like where you are right now? How did you prepare? And what are your own cold weather tips? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. If you'd like to email us, bctoday@cbc.ca is our address. And there is an extreme cold warning in Prince George. CBC's Andrew Kuryatta joins us now from Prince George. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Michelle.
It is at least sunny from what I can tell. Just gorgeous and spectacular, actually. You've got your sunglasses on, but tell me where you are exactly and how cold is it?
I'm on Central, the intersections of Highway 97 here and 5th Avenue. When I checked my car driving down here, it said it was minus 27. I think it might be minus 24 officially, but we're in that minus 25 range. And you mentioned the wind. That is the real thing.
Yeah.
Just forewarned for people watching, there's a good chance that a gust will come and blow my tripod over. It did earlier. And also, I can feel it. I'm standing with the left-hand side of my face facing north, and I can feel the left side of my face going numb as I stand here. So that's the situation. The wind is definitely making a difference to that overall cold.
We won't keep you too long, Andrew, and I appreciate you braving the cold to talk to us from there. It's people in Prince George, so very used, of course, to the cold. It's part of life. I've been there in the cold. You have to walk, long stretches before you get to another door, unfortunately, and step inside into the warmth. How does it feel strange, though, because of just how warm it's been until now?
This is the weird part, is it's almost mid-January, and it was just as I was getting ready for this that I went into my basement and dug my actual mittens out of the trunk. I haven't had to wear mittens all year so far. I've been fine with just the gloves. Through December, we had very mild weather. There was almost no snow, and it was quite warm, like just sort of above zero, just peaking below zero there. And it was hard to remind ourselves that time last year, like last Christmas, there goes my camera, we were looking at minus, it was like minus 40, minus 45. So it's still not as cold as it was last year. But yeah, definitely feeling that difference. I am layered up. And the other thing about it is just over the holidays, every outdoor group and recreational group is just wondering, when is it finally going to be cold enough? When can we flood the outdoor ice oval and the hockey rinks in the community? When can we have enough snow to go skiing? And now, when will it warm up enough so it's safe to open? Because the cross-country ski hill, they're saying that it's too cold for their equipment to run now, although some people are braving it. And a lot of the ski hills, they'll close if it's below minus 25, although it is supposed to warm up early next week. So I think people are probably looking forward to that. And I know a lot of people are just braving it anyways.
Well, yes, and that warning from Environment Canada, right? Frostbite and hypothermia can occur within minutes. One last question for you, and you can head in. What are the big concerns right now for people in Prince George then?
I mean, it's absolutely the homeless population. And that's a situation that is not unique to anywhere in the province at this point. Of course, it's more pronounced when it is more cold. There are shelters in the city. We have warming spaces. The city put out a list with the libraries during the day, senior centers potentially. But I do also know that there are community groups who are going out, they're distributing blankets, they're making sure that there's a warming shed. And you may have heard about it. There's a group that's been building tiny homes for people, and people
Hmm.
who are choosing not to move into shelters, looking for sort of more robust shelter space that they can keep themselves warm and overnight. So that's definitely the biggest concern.
Okay, get that cheek warmed up. Go inside.
Absolutely. Thank
Thank
you.
you. It's CBC journalist Andrew Kuryata joining us from Prince George. We're taking your calls as well. How cold is it where you are? What's it like? What is the wind chill factor doing to those temperatures? Let us know how you prepared. Did you dig up those mittens for the first time this year or this winter? And let us know what are your own tips as well for the cold weather. Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. We are going to hear from a paramedic in a few minutes on how we can protect ourselves. Let's head to northeastern BC now, where an extreme cold warning is in effect. Environment Canada says temperatures there will dip between -30 and -40 in communities such as Fort Nelson. Rob Fraser is the mayor of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. That includes Fort Nelson. He says preparations are important.
Difficult breathing. It's extremely cold. I've seen it colder than this, but this is really cold. You got to take the opportunity to make sure that every bit of your skin is covered. And I've got my big winter hood on to give me a little bit of relief from the wind. But yeah, people generally are prepared. This year we've been pretty lucky. It's been pretty warm, and this cold spell has come on to us here after the winter break, and people are staying inside. I think most recreation is people are keeping it to a minimum. There's really no reason to be outside recreating when it's this cold. It really is that dangerous. People are looking after their families. Schools are open, but buses are not running. But as I said, as a winter community, we need to be really paying attention to what's happening in the winter, because we can get temperatures that are extremely dangerous and can kill people. And so we really need to be paying attention. We've got a really good system with respect to our electricity, so that would be the biggest concern for us, is if we had a cold spell like this and the electricity went out. Now we're getting people into our backup shelters where we've got backup power, that sort of thing. That hasn't happened that I can recall or remember in the wintertime, but we need to be prepared just because the temperatures can be so dangerous here.
Rob Fraser is the mayor of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. That includes Fort Nelson. We are asking you, what are your own concerns when it comes to the cold weather right now? What is it like where you are today? How have you prepared, and what are your own cold weather tips? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. On your cell phone, you can hit pound 690. In Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, the Fraser Valley, and southern Gulf Islands, Arctic air is combined with strong outflow winds gusting to 60 kilometers per hour. The CBC's Joel Ballard joins us now from New Westminster. Hello, Joel.
Hello, Michelle.
Well, how are you doing? Tell us where you are, first of all. You are bundled up. No CBC toque, but certainly a scarf around you. Can you describe what it's like where you are right now?
You're right. I need to get some of that CBC swag. I am here on the pier in New Westminster. I've got the Fraser River just behind me. I don't know if you can tell, but it is quite choppy out there. The wind really picked up even in just the last 10 minutes, and it's of course quite cold. But hearing Andrew chat from Prince George, I told myself I'm not going to complain because we haven't reached those temperatures yet.
Certainly not. It's true. But it is relative as well, because you are dealing with the wind. And perhaps, this is something that is not as usual, perhaps, for people in Metro Vancouver. We can claim that.
Yes,
at least.
we've been been babied for a long time. We can't deal with extremes on either end.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. I saw some photos from the seawall, right, in downtown Vancouver earlier today, just getting thrashed by waves this morning. I can see behind you the Fraser moving quite fast as well. There it is. You can hear and see the sound at Stanley Park this morning. Can you tell us what is behind these strong winds, Joel?
Yeah, so we have that special weather statement from Environment Canada. You mentioned this at the starting, but we have this Arctic air that is pushing down towards the south coast. It's been up in the northern and central interior, creating very, very frigid conditions. It's making its way down to the south. It's going to hit here. It'll be worse by tonight. So we're just getting the beginning of it right now. Ooh, I don't know if you can tell, but the sun just opened up.
I can see it. Yeah, just
nice.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Warm yourself
Exactly.
up
So
there.
we have that. Yeah, I'll take a moment. We have that Arctic air, and it's combining with those strong winds, and it's bringing wind chill that tonight will hit -20, which for the South Coast really is pretty unheard of for most people.
And so, what is the advice for people right now then?
For sure. Well, from Environment Canada, the big warning is that things like frostbite, hypothermia, when we do get to those very, very, very cold temperatures, those conditions can happen within minutes. So the advice is to cover up, wear extra layers, make sure you're doing everything you can to stay warm, staying inside. I mean, even out here today, there's a couple people passing right now, but this boardwalk has mostly been empty, and this is normally a pretty popular area. So I think most people have the right idea. They're staying inside, staying warm. Just a few of us out here braving it right now.
I appreciate your good work, Joel. Thank you very much.
It's the service, right?
Take one for the team. Joel, thank you.
Absolutely.
You go and warm up in the car. That's
Thanks, Michelle.
CBC's Joel Ballard live in New Westminster. And we are going to take a call right now asking you what things are like where you are, how have you prepared for the cold weather, and what are your own tips for staying warm as well. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Bizan is on the line in Vancouver. Hi, Bizan.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just wondering, Michelle Eliot and the CBC, how come you guys haven't broadcasted anything about the International Court of Justice taking initiative by South Africa to take Israel to court on genocide? Mm-hmm. On October 17th, you had a show that was titled Between Israel and Hamas, how it affects people mentally and emotionally. You had guests like Kyle Matthews. You had guests like John Allen. You even had a Dr. Drianne McIntosh to discuss how this affects people, and you're not even discussing the genocide and the accusation of genocide. Why is it silent? Why are we talking about the weather when there's a genocide taking place?
I appreciate your call, Bizan. When it comes to that, there is coverage throughout the day here on CBC. We did an interview on the early edition this morning with a lawyer explaining what the motion is from South Africa at the International Court. Certainly something that we're looking at. Would you like to share your thoughts now? You are on the air now, and
I would like to share my thoughts. That'd be excellent. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I wanted to share that on October 17th, I called this line because you had a specific guest that was speaking on the terms of genocide, and I mentioned that what was happening is genocide, and that guest of yours said no because they were a legal professional, that they knew more than what we are seeing with our own very eyes. So the fact that you have guests on that are denying exactly what is happening, the fact that the CBC is not broadcasting this live, the fact that our politicians are not speaking out and they're not endorsing the case against Israel that's brought by South Africa is really concerning. And you guys, you're just being complicit in this genocide. So are our political officials. And it frustrates us and it makes us upset and it disappoints us. So this is what we're doing. We take in our own hands. We make space for our own voices to be heard.
Okay. Bizan, thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback. As I say, we have been covering the issue throughout CBC a couple of times here on our show, having done interviews with the BC Human Rights Commissioner, having done interviews as well with other experts. I note the show that you are referring to, which was the first time that we covered it. We have covered it a couple of times since then, but I appreciate your call and your point that it needs to be covered. It is an ongoing issue. We talked about it a little bit yesterday as well, but certainly something that we'll continue to talk about, and appreciate the push from you and taking the space to speak up today on the program. And so we are following that, of course, that motion from South Africa at the International Court of Justice today. It is 12:20 now, 1:20 in the Mountain Time Zone. This is BC Today here on CBC. Well, back to the cold weather that is also top of mind for many in British Columbia today. Air temperatures dropping to minus 12 tonight, and that wind chill making it feel like minus 20. As you heard, Environment Canada warning frostbite and hypothermia can occur within minutes if adequate precautions are not taken outdoors. And so homeless people who are experiencing homelessness are at risk. You heard from Andrew Kuryatta earlier saying that is the top concern for people in Prince George. Well, at the Union Gospel Mission, spokesperson Nicole Mucci says their team is already preparing.
Knowing that the cold snap was approaching, our outreach teams have been working diligently to not only encourage people to come inside to our shelters and let them know where there might be other warming centers are available, but they are also preparing their mobile mission rescue vehicle. We have one both in the Fraser Valley and one for Metro Vancouver, and those two vehicles are going out daily to connect with folks who are experiencing homelessness and might be more on the fringe and kind of on the outside of society. So folks who are living perhaps under bridges or in more forested areas, and checking in on them especially and saying, hey, we don't know if you know, but it's supposed to be dangerously cold this weekend, even tonight. And do you have what you need to survive if you're not willing to come with us to find somewhere warm for you to go inside?
Well, we may not be used to this sudden return to winter weather. We're asking you, what is it like where you are today? How have you prepared for the frigid temperatures? And what's your own advice when it comes to cold weather? We are going to speak with a paramedic in just a moment as well on how to protect yourself and stay safe when temperatures dip so low, and how to prevent hypothermia and frostbite. So that's coming up in just a couple of moments. Right now, Basil is on the line in Vancouver. Hi, Basil.
Hi.
Thanks for calling. And so, I mean, you're in Vancouver. We can see that the sun is out, but certainly I can see the flags reflecting, just blowing in the wind there. Tell us what you've been doing to warm up.
Well, I'm thinking about inside. It's all very well to say, oh, just stay inside. But with the cost of everything, we want to keep our costs down. So dress warmly inside. Wear 2 pairs of socks if you have to, long johns, whatever it takes to keep warm, and especially a toque. That is amazing to how they keep you warm, and it can help, say, jacking that heat way up, and you can still be quite comfortable, and you don't feel bad. What does it matter if you dress warmly inside? That's the way it's supposed to be, and rather than having not much on and then having the heat way jacked up and all the expense and the resources wasted. We've got to help our environment in every way we can, and that's one way. And also, when you're going out, walk briskly. That warms you up amazingly. So those are my tips, and hopefully some people will follow them and help our resources and have a better world for our children and grandchildren.
That's exactly right, Basil. Thank you very much. You know, keep your costs of heating down, and depending on what you use, emitting less carbon as well. Thank you so much for the call. Keep warm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. That's Basil joining us from Vancouver. Yes, even if you are inside, you can turn your heater down, I guess is what he's saying, but you can warm up by bundling up as well. Well, we're going to get some medical advice on that right now. Brian Twaits has 30 years experience working as a paramedic in Vancouver, as now a paramedic public information officer with the BC Emergency Health Services. Brian, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. It is cold out there today, isn't it?
It sure is, and that's why we're talking about it now. So much concern is, of course, for people who are experiencing homelessness. What kinds of calls do you get when temperatures dip so low?
Well, we do typically see a rise in call with cold-related medical emergencies like hypothermia or frostbite. And also when we've got the snow and the ice, there can be an increased amount of people slipping and falling as well. So there is an increase in our call volume for sure when that's going on.
Yeah. And what are the scenarios? What kinds of conditions are people facing?
Well, just the weather in general. I mean, I couldn't believe how cold it was this morning when I was getting in the car to go to work with that wind chill. So you've had so many great tips so far of layering up, making sure, one thing that we always like to say is if you're going to be traveling, that make sure that your car has enough fuel in it to get you where you need to go in case you get stranded, a sudden snowstorm, if you're on a highway, making sure you've got proper winter tires for sure is important. putting snacks and water in your car and maybe an additional blanket. So if you get stuck on a highway, all little things like that. And, of course, snow tires are so important.
Yeah. Well, tell us, what are the signs that we should watch out for? Because, of course, what we want to avoid are those, severe impacts, things like frostbite and hypothermia. What should we be keeping an eye out for?
Right. Well, hypothermia and frostbite can be a real true medical emergency. So we really want people to pay attention to not only their families, but we may have your neighbors that don't get out of the house very much as well. So we want you to make sure that you check on them as well. But things for signs and symptoms to look for hypothermia can come on very mild and be quite tricky. Just some exhaustion or feeling, overly tired, confusion, some shivering and sort of fumbling and loss of dexterity, memory loss, some slurred speech, and again, like I said, drowsiness. So things like that, we want you to be aware of for hypothermia, especially if you've been exposed to the outside weather. And then, of course, frostbite is another thing too, if we have, prolonged contact. So things to look for would be like white or grayish appearance of your skin area. The skin may feel unusually firm or waxy in texture, and extreme numbness in like your fingertips or your toes that's been exposed can be signs of frostbite. And again, these can be a medical emergency, so we want you to seek help for that.
Okay.
And the other thing to consider is if you're having some questions about it, you can always phone 811 and you'll get online with a healthcare professional there, and they can answer some of your questions, get some advice to you about what to do. And if in fact you do need an ambulance, they can always contact you to 911 directly as well.
Very good advice. I think that's going to be top of mind for people, just to ensure that they're staying safe during this cold weather that we're having this week. Brian, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me today.
Brian Twaits is the Paramedic Public Information Officer with BC Emergency Health Services. It's 12:28, 1:28 in the Mountain Time Zone. You're with BC Today. Well, BC United leader Kevin Falcon is calling on the province to ban cell phones in classrooms. It's prompted a mixed response, with some saying the decision should be left to school districts because phones can be an important tool for research by students. Others are supportive of the move, like these callers to CBC's Talkback line.
I fully support banning cell phones during class time. They are there to learn. They are there not to Snapchat or take pictures. I'm a high school teacher. The problem I have is when I actually circulate the room, very few students are actually using it to do research. They're often needing to be reminded to get back to their work because they're on TikTok or whatever, they're texting or whatever it is.
I'm a grandma, and we've been getting messages from my grandson's teacher. He's 14. He's totally using his phone all the time in his classes. And I know they're a learning tool, but you do have a lot of kids that sneak them under the desk and use them and do whatever they want. And it's a lot to ask the teacher to control these teenagers.
Well, what about your own cell phone use? Are you happy with your relationship with your cell phone? How much you rely on it? Or are you changing that this year? You can call us. That conversation begins in just a couple of minutes. Love to hear from you on your cell phone use. Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on that very cell phone as well. It is now 12:30, 1:30 in the Mountain Time Zone. Robert Zimmerman has your CBC News update.
Good afternoon. Environment Canada has issued Arctic outflow warnings for several areas of the province. Starting tonight, wind chill values could be as low as -20 in Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, the Fraser Valley, and much of the central and north coast. In most of northern and central BC, extreme cold warnings remain in place, and in some areas it could feel as cold as -50. More police officers across the province will be wearing body cameras in the coming months. The BC Association of Chiefs of Police says testing is underway, and a special panel has been created to standardize the rollout and develop protocols for how and when they should be used. And Ed Broadbent, the former leader of the federal New Democratic Party, has died. He became leader in 1975 and led the party in 4 elections. In 1988, Broadbent became the most successful NDP leader to that point, winning 43 seats. Ed Broadbent was 87 years old. And now the forecast. As I mentioned, extreme cold and Arctic outflow warnings are in place for much of the province. On the north coast, sunny and windy this afternoon with a high of -8, highs to -30 and mainly cloudy in the Peace. In the central interior, lots of sunshine with highs to -27. Cloudy in the West Kootenay this afternoon, light snow in the East Kootenay with highs from -19 to -6. In the southern interior, highs to -13 and mainly cloudy. And light snow this afternoon in Greater Victoria, flurries in sections of Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley with highs from -2 to +4. And that's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
We're talking about perhaps cutting back on cell phones and smartphone use. Is that something that you maybe pondered yourself?
I'm pretty good at not scrolling too much, but I can see how it becomes addictive, right? Like you get caught up. Do you mean like do you mean texting people or
and everything?
Yeah.
Everything.
No, I mean there are times when, I've been scrolling and I've been checking news sites or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're on for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you realize I've been
right.
on for half an hour, 45 minutes.
Where did that time go?
It's not that satisfying.
No, that's absolutely right. It's not, and then you're tired for some reason, right? You're exhausted,
Yeah,
and you
sucks it out of you.
It does suck it out of you. I do try to put it away for certain times of the day, dinner time, or if my family's speaking with me. I know you're going to say, why were you doing this in the first place? But I try to look at them and not have my phone in front of me while they're doing that.
I think that's a good strategy.
Probably a good plan. It's not very polite to scroll while you're...
I don't want to judge you, Michelle.
You do it often enough, Rob.
Oh, right. Good point.
No time to stop.
No.
Rob, thank you very much.
Sure.
Rob Zimmerman. I'll text you later.
Okay.
Rob Zimmerman in our CBC Vancouver newsroom. Welcome back. You're with BC Today here on CBC Radio 1, live streaming as well on the CBC News app and on our website, cbc.ca/BC. You can listen to us anytime on the CBC Listen app as well and watch us again on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us. I know it's very cold out there. I hope you're staying warm and listening or watching wherever you are. As you've been hearing, the BC United Party is proposing a ban on smartphones in the classroom. The idea is by banning cell phones in class, students can focus more on what they are learning. And this week, Quebec implemented a ban on phones in the classroom. Well, what do students in BC think? The CBC's Rohit Joseph spoke to some students on Vancouver Island.
No cell phones in the class. What do you think of that?
I wouldn't want that, but it definitely would help my education for sure. I totally agree with that.
Do you mind if I ask, like, are you in high school? Like, what's your grade?
I'm in grade 11.
Okay. How do you find the cell phone experience right now?
It's definitely affected my grade. Like, I'm failing like 2 classes right now, so it definitely would help if it was away, but I just can't. I can't take myself to do it.
When you're in class and the teacher's talking, do you have the phone like on your desk? Like, where do you keep it? Yeah.
On the desk, but like when I'm bored or something, or after the lesson is over, I usually just go on my phone right after.
It's hard, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So you actually wouldn't mind this? It's like, it's just not there. I don't have to think about it.
It'd be hard at first for sure, but yeah, I didn't.
I think a teacher has the right to, exercise individually. I mean, to be honest, a lot of people can be, not too great about it and, just be always on it and disrupting the class and all that. But I think as long as you're personally responsible with it, you have every right to have it. But I think if the teacher says, hey there, buddy, you're, on it all the time, you're, disrupting my teaching, you're not paying attention, then I think the teacher totally has a right to, step in. I think it's circumstantial. I don't think a provincial government should have a say in that. I would leave it up to a teacher.
I use my phone for research, text my parents in case there's an emergency. They need to text me, and mostly for research.
It's a bad idea. I have art class, and when I have to go and Google images to use and stuff to draw, I need it. And my art classes have any Chromebooks in it and stuff, so it's too hard having to go grab a Chromebook when I should have my phone in my pocket. And my teacher said it's okay.
Are there enough Chromebooks for everybody in your school?
No. Okay. No. Every class shares Chromebooks with a different classroom, so it's too much. Sometimes you don't get a Chromebook, sometimes you do.
Nice to hear from some high school students on that proposal. And as you heard, some conflicted feelings there about their own cell phone use in class. We're asking you whether you're a student or an adult, because yes, this is an issue for adults too. What is your own relationship with your cell phone? How much do you rely on it? And are you rethinking that perhaps? Are you considering cutting back on your cell phone use this year? Our phone numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Chris is on the line in Victoria. Hi, Chris. The irony, right, of asking people to call on their cell phone while we're talking about cutting back on our cell phone use. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Well, I'm on the landline.
There you go. Points for you.
That was a joke, not a landline. I don't know too many more landlines.
Right.
I think that, I feel like I use my cell phone a lot, but I also think I use it appropriately. And I think one of the things to keep in mind for everyone, not just kids, is that a cell phone works really well as something that you drive and you control. But if it starts to drive you and if it starts to control you, then it starts to become a problem, I think. And one of the challenging things for me is I have a daughter who's not yet of the age to have her own cell phone. But, in 4 or 5 years when that comes along, I'm really worried about how I'm going to be able to monitor and manage it, outside of school, let alone how teachers are going to be able to do that inside of school. We have some friends that have kids that are in their kind of early teens, and they say they really, really struggle to manage their kids' usage of their phones. Yeah. And so I think instilling good practices, right away when the kids first get their phones is the best thing we can do. But I think it's going to become more and more challenging as time goes on.
It is.
And
yeah. I love that if you're the one driving and it's not driving you. But what you've touched on is the parental dilemma for the ages, right? Chris, thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
That's Chris joining us from Victoria. Well, just on that topic, Manjula Selvarajah is a CBC technology columnist who has thought about this a lot. I spoke with her earlier. Manjula, it feels like everything we do is on our phone. What about you? How would you describe your relationship with your phone?
My goodness, too much, Michelle. It's too much. I mean, there was this moment before the holidays where my daughter kept saying, when is the Christmas tree going to go up? When is the Christmas tree going to go up? And I think we were a week away from sort of the holidays, and it hadn't gone up yet. And I was tired. I was so tired. Yeah. I didn't want to put the tree up. I didn't care about the holidays. And then I had to sort of pause. And once I did hit the holidays, I paused and I thought, what is it that I'm doing that's taking up so much time? Because I love what I do. I have a lovely family. I have a ton of support. My kid is a teen. She's great. What is it? And then I started really thinking about how I was spending my time, and realized when you go to, there's an app called Screen Time, not an app, but a feature called Screen Time on the iPhone. If you want to scare yourself, Michelle, go take a look at how much time you spend. I was doing something like an average of 4 to 5 hours a day. And some days I had as many as 200 pickups, meaning that I'm going about my day and I picked up my phone for some reason to look at it 200 times. I interrupted whatever it was that I was doing 200 times. So and then I started thinking about some of the things that I was going through. There was a lack of focus. I was running out of time doing things. And then I also got the sense that what the phone was doing to me was creating want in my life, meaning that whenever I spend time on social media, I think that I live a simple life. I'm happy with my life, but it was making me want things that I don't think would have added to my happiness, because I would see a picture of someone cooking in a gorgeous Dutch oven and think, oh, maybe I want a teal Dutch oven.
I need to have that.
Yeah. So I think that in a way that was the other problem, that it was creating this unnecessary want in my life for things that I don't think would actually make me happy.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, I'm sure that you probably feel some of these things too.
Absolutely. I think I have had that sort of, bracing myself for what the phone is going to say. I've spent, what time I've spent on the phone, and how much it's increased over the previous week. It's like, okay, do I really want to look? Do I really want to look? But if we all examined our lives, I think we would probably be very similar to you. So all of that examining and thinking has led you to the plan for a different approach this year?
I mean, whenever I talk about
fingers
this,
crossed.
Like, yes, fingers crossed. But people think, but you're a tech journalist. How are you going to be able to do this? So it's a very simple plan. So I did actually think about. At one point, I had this. Initially, I freaked out looking at the numbers, and I thought I should just get a flip phone or a dumb phone, and I realized I can't do that. Because of the work that I do, I need to be uber connected. So what I'm doing is once a week, every Sunday, from 12, basically 24 hours, the only thing I can do with that phone is take phone calls. And there's a language app. I'm using an app called Duolingo to learn French.
Oh, yes.
I can just go in. Yeah, I can go in to learn 5 minutes of French. It's a little thing. I have a long streak going, but that's it. I can only take phone calls. I've told people that are really close to me that may worry about why I'm not, answering a WhatsApp chat or a Signal or a face, all of the different ways that the 15 different ways people direct message you now. So I've told my loved ones that this is the only way to reach me on Sunday is to call me. Otherwise, you're not going to hear from me. And the new thing that I'm adding on this week is I'm actually going to put, believe it or not, an out of office on my work email and on my personal email, because what's starting to happen is people are actually emailing me expecting a response over the weekend. So I've done it somewhat unsuccessfully one weekend so far, and I'm already starting to feel some of the effects of it.
Yeah, like what?
So this is really interesting, actually, because what I do at the same time, simply because I'm doing it, and I also want to do it as an experiment. I want to journal what it feels like to go through this. And by journal, I don't mean I write a long essay. I'm just making a couple of notes. One of the things that I've noticed is I have all this free time. I don't know. Last Sunday, I thought, this day is so long. How is this day so long? Suddenly, I have all of this time. I managed to actually have a phone conversation with my mom for a really long time. I managed to not just cook a meal, but a really splendid meal, because I love cooking and I love eating, and actually spend time sort of cooking. And then there was just all of this time I found myself like doing laundry, looking out the window, walking, looking around, sitting on a couch, looking out. Like, I didn't realize how much time.
Are there any trees that need to be put up?
Well, the tree has to be taken down, and I'll do that another weekend. But the day just felt so long. And the other thing that came as a surprise to me is I've heard that young women, especially when they look at places like Instagram, social media applications, they feel that gap in their life. They feel like their life isn't on par with how their friends are living it up, because everyone posts these these wonderful moments in their life, and that's all you see. So when you see that, you start to feel like your life isn't as good as theirs. So, I've always thought, well, I'm a little bit older and I'm immune to that feeling. But what I felt at the end of Sunday was I didn't feel that gap. Like I didn't feel like I didn't feel any FOMO, or I didn't feel like everyone was living this brilliant Sunday making sourdough bread with, I don't know, in this gorgeous pink kitchen with their teal Dutch oven. I didn't
While
have
doing
that.
burpees.
Yeah, like
in the kitchen.
That was actually a really, I would say that was the biggest, other than the fact that the day was longer, that was, that in itself, that glorious feeling of not feeling that is the reason that I would keep this up for a while, because I think that actually, it's something that stresses you out. It makes you feel terrible about the good things that you have in your life, and doesn't make you grateful for what you have in your life. So that was the other realization that I had.
Manjula Silvaraja is a technology columnist for CBC. And we're taking your calls, asking you if you are rethinking your reliance on your cell phone this year. Jim is on the line in Victoria. Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Hi. And so tell us about your own cell phone use.
Well, I actually don't have a cell phone. I do, but I only use it for taking pictures.
Really?
I live outside of that bubble.
Yes. Wow.
But the reason I'm calling in is because I used to teach a media literacy course at Vic High in Victoria from 2001 until 2016 when I retired. And so I saw, well, first, I would try to get people to think critically about the media. And then as cell phones started to come on board, and we'd have staff meetings about how are we going to control this, and take their phone if you want, and all this kind of stuff. And I never really wanted to be a policeman, because I remember in high school I just would have gotten more sneaky about it.
Right.
So when I would notice in a class that the attention was starting to drift a little bit because of, I don't know, perhaps I wasn't keeping them engaged, or I'm not sure what else, I would put a quotation from Marshall McLuhan up on the board, and the quotation was, "We become what we behold. First we shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us." And so I would ask the students then to have a class discussion about how are these tools shaping your behavior. So rather than penalizing, just try to get to think critically about it.
Wow. That's really interesting. And what was the response? Did any of the students, come back and say, yeah,
Well, it's not the kind of discussion where you're going to have an immediate change. But one thing that was quite interesting was, generally students talk about how their life was enriched by having it because they had so much more access socially and to information. But then I would say, okay, how many of you here have younger brothers and sisters? And quite a few hands would go up. And I'd say, well, at what point do you think it would be okay for your younger brother and sister to have a cell phone? And immediately they became much more conservative.
Wow.
And they would generally say, oh, well, I wouldn't let them have it until like grade 9. So they could see the pitfalls in their younger brothers and sisters, but they might have been a little bit more blind to it themselves.
Well, we could hear that from the comments from the students earlier as well, right? Saying, yes, they can pose a distraction for sure, and perhaps it might be beneficial, but at the same time, we've come to rely on these phones, perhaps for some of our work as well. Can I ask you why you have decided to only have a phone to take photos? Are you there, Jim?
Yeah, I can take a picture, and then I can put it up onto my computer and then send it. It's really just it's a one-use tool for me.
Yeah.
And I
And you don't
beyond
feel
that,
disconnected.
I don't. There's enough distraction in my life, and I find it sad, really. I would notice when I'd come to school in the morning, you'd have students in the hallway sitting, waiting for the doors to be open. And they're all sitting together, but they're all alone with their cell phones. And Sherry Turkle wrote a book. She's an MIT prof who looks at media usage, and one of her books was called Together Alone.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me, I just saw a film about the life of the Haida artist, carver Robert Davidson, and he was there at this event. But one of the shots, which still stays with me, is there was some footage of him traveling to New York, and just a whole bunch of people sitting on the front steps of, I think it was a museum. So many people, but all on their phones.
Yeah.
And looking down, nobody looking at each other.
Yeah.
Together alone. Yeah. Wow. Jim, thank you very much. What a poignant call.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Take
Good
care.
to hear from you. Take care. That's Jim in Victoria. Let's asking you about your own relationship with your phone, reliance on your phone. Are you rethinking it? Jamie is on the line in Quesnel. Hi, Jamie.
Hi there. How are you?
I am well. Thanks so much for calling in.
Good. Yeah. Just my relationship with my phone, it's basically allowed me to complete a master's degree because I'm an auditory learner and I can download my textbooks and listen to my textbooks rather than read them all and be feeling very stressed about the idea of having to read those textbooks is very difficult for me. I don't think I'd be able to do it without having my phone.
Yeah, and there's that as well, the usefulness of this technology. So what goes through your mind when you hear people debating the use of cell phones, especially in the classroom, which is the setting that you're in?
Yeah, and I'm
Although
also,
you're a master's student.
I also teach as well. So, and I've taught in the junior program here. You know, there is a relationship with our phone that can be unhealthy, but at the same time, we just don't have enough technology in our school district to provide for what students need. And so I do think that we're actually going to be behind when it comes to other countries and things and the use of technology. So I'm on the fence on it. Obviously, it's hard when you want to do classroom management, but I think that that's really between each relationship between the teacher and the student. So
yeah, really, what a great perspective. Thank you so much for the call, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
That's Jamie in Quesnel, and Roman is joining us from Port Alberni. What's your relationship with your phone, Roman?
Well, I'll start by reiterating what you said, as it's ironic that I'm calling you from my cell phone here.
Yes.
I'm
So
glad
there's a
I
plus
didn't get.
there.
I'm glad I didn't get to speak right away because I've been picking up some points from your previous callers that are, again, as you said, really quite profound and really quite relevant to the struggle that's at hand. I think what I'm getting from all of this, and again, forcing myself to have an introspection of my own personal lifestyle, habits, etc., and maybe addiction, is that it's so easy to make excuses for our phone usage to the extremes that we are, because we can validate it by the fact that it's our means of communication. It's our tool.
Right.
We have to have it.
Right.
Well, that may be true to a point. What I'm finding, listening to all these callers and listening to your feedback, is there is no clear delineation or demarcation point between the phone being a smart tool and a smart distraction, where we go from using it to get information and details that we need to have on hand to actually seeking addictive sort of rewards for our personal gratification, likes, follows, views, whatever that might be on social media.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest struggles we're going to have, and this is just me speaking for me, is because it's such an intrinsic struggle, and the fact that the phone itself intrinsically is both, it's got dual identities. The duality in the phone, the duality in ourselves, allows us to really blur the line between the phone being our tool and us being the phone slave.
Yeah. What our first caller said, right? Who's driving?
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I like the fact that, if you're going to ask questions about, your habits on this. Let's use some analogies to the effect that, okay, your granddaughter is how old, or your grandson, or your, kind of give an external view of what that behavior looks like on someone you know, and realize phubbing, which is snubbing people by being on your phone, is a real big thing.
I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah, phubbing.
Okay.
Phubbing. You can phub everyone around you. But anyway, I really appreciate this discussion today, and I hope I get some good feedback, because I need some pointers to rein mine in. It's definitely a problem.
I learned something talking to you, phubbing. We don't want to do that. Roman, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
That's Roman in Port Alberni. And Michael wrote us an email. I'm definitely taking care now to place my phone in one place and use it only for communication. It is too easy to check Facebook, but I'm also forcing myself to limit myself to friends and group communication. It shouldn't be so difficult to put it down, but like breaking any addiction, self-control is key. Wow, thank you so much. What a thoughtful conversation. And I hope that we take from it, what we might be able to apply to our own lives. I know I will. I think phubbing is one that I certainly won't do. And that idea of who's driving are you driving this as a tool, or is it driving you and your behavior as too much of a distraction? Thank you so much for all of your calls. My thanks as well to Manjula Selvaraja, a tech columnist for CBC. Great to be with you today. That's it for our show. And as you heard, breaking news as well. Longtime New Democratic Party leader Ed Broadbent, who moved the party further to the left and up in the polls, has died at 87. The Broadbent Institute, which he founded, announced the death in a statement this afternoon. And the statement said, "Our country has lost a fierce champion for ordinary Canadians, an intellectual who strongly believed in building a good society." Broadbent was a companion of the Order of Canada and led the NDP for 14 years and through 4 elections, and returned to the House of Commons later in life. He first ran for the party leadership in 1971 to replace Tommy Douglas. He snapped the top job just a few years later in 1975. This is BC Today. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, you can listen to the show again on the CBC Listen app and watch us on demand on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. And join us tomorrow on the show. Brian Mincher will be here to take your calls. Oh, pardon me. Brian Mincher will be here next week. But tomorrow we are going to talk about booze-free beverages and what are the drinks that are alcohol-free that you are enjoying or experimenting with. That's tomorrow on the show.